So, just so we're clear, the top five rosters doesn't necessarily mean the top five teams. As for the top five rosters, I'm looking at every position as being equal. So, quarterback is going to be no different than running back, even though we all know quarterback is much more valuable. With that said, let's get started on the video. To start off, we have Baltimore at number five, where Lamar's easily a top five quarterback, and Derrick Henry is still a top five running back, in my opinion. Yes, Henry's numbers were a bit down this past year, but I don't think that is due to age regression. I think that was more due to Will Levis and the passing offense as a whole being non functioning and leading to teams being able to just completely sell out to stop the run, which no running back's going to have success in that situation. On very limited snaps, Keaton Mitchell was electric at running back as well, so they have options in the backfield for sure. Defensively, that's where their bread is buttered, as their defensive backs are super strong. Marlon Humphrey, Brandon Stevens, and Arthur Marlette are all above average. Safety-wise, Kyle Hamilton might just be the best safety in all of football, and Marcus Williams isn't far behind as he's elite as well. As a depth piece, Nate Wiggins is a very high-end young cornerback also, so they don't just have the high-end talent, they have depth as well, which is super valuable. Linebacker-wise, Roquan Smith is about as good as you'll find in the NFL, though I'm not counting him for much because he's an unknown. Trenton Simpson has the makings of a great linebacker as well, as he has incredible athleticism and has had time to develop in the Baltimore system, which just holistically is a system that has great coaching. So I have trust that he's going to be developed and ready to go. The defensive line is a great plus for Baltimore too, as everyone is really solid and they have a good rotation also. Inside, Justin Madubuike is an elite pass rusher and a solid run defender as well. Travis Jones, inversely, is great against the run and all right rushing the passer, so they have a nice dueling set of skill sets there. Likewise, Michael Pierce is one of the best run stuffers in the league, and he can collapse the pocket a bit as well. Edgewise, Odafe Owe is one of the more promising young edge rushers, as he's greatly balanced as a pass rusher and run defender. Cal Van Noy isn't much of an edge setter, but he can get after the passer, so he has value as well. You might be wondering, there's so much to like for Baltimore, why are they only fifth? The reason is they have some concerns on offense beyond the backfield. Zay Flowers had an awesome rookie year, but after him, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, there's some question marks on their pass catchers, which also with Andrews and Likely, you're not going to be on the field at all times because it's nice to be able to have a rotation of pass catchers out there. So it's not always going to be Andrews and Likely in a two tight end set. There's going to be times where it's just one of them so that they can have the other come in later on in the drive. On the offensive line, Andrew Voorhees or Josh Jones are a bit of a question mark at guard, and Ben Cleveland has never been a full-time starter at their other guard position, so there's a question mark there. It's hard to project for somebody that just hasn't been a long-term starter. Overall, these aren't massive problems, and the rest of the team more than makes up for these issues, but that holds them back from being higher on the list. Moving to number 4, we have the Miami Dolphins. They have a high-end quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, and they probably have the best running back duo in the league with Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, both being incredible yards per carry demons. What's crazy is that might not even be the biggest strength on offense, though, as they also have the best wide receiver duo in the league with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. In addition to that, they have a very high-end third option in Odell Beckham Jr. also. Defensively, there's a lot to like as well. They have a very nice cornerback trio with the high-end talent of Kendall Fuller and Jalen Ramsey, and then a solid nickel in Kader Kohu. At safety, Javon Holland is a top 3 guy that is incredible in coverage and great against the run, too. Jordan Poyer is a really solid coverage safety also. On the D-line, Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips is a top 5 edge duo, and Shaq Barrett is a great third rusher. Then Chop Robinson is an amazing fourth with a ton of upside as they drafted him in the first with some of the more freakish athleticism you'll ever see for an edge rushing prospect. Inside, the loss of Christian Wilkins seemed large, but the addition of Calais Campbell mitigates it, as does still having Zach Seiler, who is still a very balanced defensive tackle that's among the best in the NFL. The only issues for Miami are their offensive line, which is a bit overly talked about in my opinion, as 4 of their 5 starters are above average, with the only exception being Isaiah Wynn, who looks like a big issue at left guard despite starting his career out well at tackle. Another issue that's smaller than the offensive line is their linebacker duo, which is a bit of an odd one because they do have a ton of talent there. It's just going to be a question of getting the right guys in the right positions, because Jordan Brooks is an all-right linebacker that's taking the spot of either David Long or Anthony Walker Jr. I think both of those players are better than Brooks, though, as Brooks has struggled fitting against the run and is just average against the pass, whereas Walker is great in coverage and Long is elite against the run. Duke Riley is balanced in both regards as well, so I think he also has an argument over Brooks. But either way, they have probably the deepest linebacker room in the league. It's just a matter of actually playing the best guys and ignoring the contract aspects of the players and just making sure everybody gets in where they should. And lastly, they don't really have an issue at tight end. I think some people think that they still have sort of nobody at tight end, but Jonnu Smith is a very solid option, so that's not a weakness. It's not a strength either, but it's definitely not an issue for them. Number 3 is Detroit, and there's so much to like for them. Jared Goff might not be a top 5 quarterback, but he's pretty close. Running back wise, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery is a top 3 duo that works perfectly together, as Montgomery has made a living off of plowing through contact, and Gibbs is making his living off of avoiding it, so they pair so nicely with their skill sets. They're also just really freaking good together. Their offensive line would be my bet for the best offensive line in the league this year, as some other elite offensive lines like Philly and Baltimore have fallen off a bit, and Detroit has found a way to get even stronger with the addition of Kevin Zeitler. Speaking of him, he's their worst graded PFF offensive lineman, as he was graded 15 out of 79 guards, so really good. Everyone else, though, was ranked in the top 10, which is absolutely ridiculous. Similarly, for their defensive trenches, they have literal and figurative huge talent. It starts with Aiden Hutchinson, who is a top 10 edge rusher with the size to play inside on pass rushing snaps, which is nice versatility. Aleem McNeil is a top 10 defensive tackle, and DJ Reader is probably right there as well, maybe the 10th or 11th best. So the duo is probably the best in the entire league. Marcus Davenport is a very high-end edge rusher when he's healthy as well. So if he can be healthy, this is going to be just one of the premier defensive lines in all of football. Their cornerbacks aren't necessarily a strength, but it shouldn't be a weakness either. Carlton Davis is a solid cornerback, and Terrion Arnold should be a good corner as well, as he was a high-end prospect. Brian Branch was one of the best nickels in the league last year as well. Safety-wise, Efetu Melifanu is one of the best safeties in the league as well, so there's a good bit to like for their defensive backs. The few things that aren't strengths, but also aren't necessarily weaknesses either, are their other safety, Kirby Joseph. He's just alright, as he can defend the run well, but not really the pass. Linebacker-wise, Alex Anzalone is a really solid linebacker, but Jack Campbell was rough as a rookie. Lastly, receiving-wise, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a great receiver, and Sam Laporta is an awesome tight end. But after them, they have some question marks as their receivers are just not guarantees. Jamison Williams could be very good, but he hasn't shown it at this point. And Khalif Raymond hasn't shown that much in his career either. So there's a bit of a question mark in who their second and third receivers are going to be. But there's a ton of talent there. It's just going to be a matter of figuring it all out. For the number 2 team, we have a controversial one that, in my opinion, shouldn't be as divisive as it is. It's the New York Jets. Their biggest strength could be argued to be their defense as a whole, which is astoundingly good. Specifically, their cornerbacks are the best in the league. Sauce Gardner is likely the best corner in the NFL, and then DJ Reed is an awesome number 2. Michael Carter is a great nickel as well that's put together back-to-back elite seasons. So they have the corner room on complete lock. Moving further back, Tony Adams is an above-average safety, and so is Chuck Clark. So there's no issue on the back end at all. Moving to the front 7, CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams is a great linebacker duo as well, as both guys are strong against the run and great in coverage. On the defensive line, things don't slow down, as Quinnen Williams is a top 3 defensive tackle, Jermaine Johnson is an awesome edge, and Hassan Reddick is a high-end edge rusher also. Javon Kinlaw is a weakness against the run, but is a good pass rusher, so he's kind of neutral. He's not really a strength or weakness. Offensively, their O-line should be a strength because, assuming most of their guys can stay healthy, Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses is as good of a tackle duo as you'll find in the league. And then Olu Fashanu should be a great swing tackle. Elijah Vera Tucker is a very solid guard, and so is John Simpson. So the interior is in good shape as well. If Joe Tippmann can maintain his adequate level of play, the entire offensive line is going to be good with some real star power to it. Receiving-wise, Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams is a really good duo, so long as Williams can stay healthy. And then Malachi Corley looks like a great third piece as well. Tyler Conklin is a solid tight end that isn't much of a strength, but isn't a weakness either. In the backfield, Breece Hall is fantastic and is definitely one of the 5 best running backs in the league. But Aaron Rodgers marks the biggest possible weakness, as he was about average in his last year of play, which did involve an injury to his thumb, specifically on his throwing hand, but still, that's something to be worried about because in addition to the Achilles injury that happened this year, he's piled together some not-so-great play and injuries, which just is not a great look. In all, though, they have a weakness at defensive tackle too, possibly, and also have one at quarterback, perhaps. Basically everything else is a strength, though, except for a few things like tight end and safety, which are just solid. So this is a really good team in all. Lastly, this shouldn't come as a surprise to you if you've been following the NFL recently. Number 1 is the 49ers. It's hard to start anywhere as they have strengths at basically every position, but for me it starts with their offense, specifically their receivers. They have the best or second best trio in the league depending on how you view Miami's group, but they comfortably have the best weapons out of anyone in the NFL. Brandon Ayuk is a top 5 wide receiver, and Deebo Samuel is a top 3 number 2 wide receiver. Ricky Pearsall should be a great third option as well, because since 2019, the average rookie wide receiver drafted in the first has a 73 PFF grade, which translates to being the 39th best receiver in the league. That could even undersell Pearsall as well, as San Francisco knows their wide receivers as well as anyone does, and gets them in the fold in a way that really utilizes their strengths. At tight end, George Kittle is the best tight end in football in my opinion, as he's second only to Travis Kelce for receiving prowess, but is miles ahead as a run blocker. Moving to running back, Christian McCaffrey is probably the best halfback in the league as well, as he can truly be used like a wide receiver or as a great runner as well. Speaking of their backfield, Brock Purdy is a really good quarterback as well. They can be a little bit underrated because for how good the supporting cast is, some people like to think that that's all that makes Purdy, but I think that he's good in addition to that. He's good in his own right, as he's really good at timing routes and throwing with anticipation and just being on time in general. Moving to their defensive line is the star of the show, but their defensive backs and linebacker core is elite as well. To start with their defensive line, though, they have an elite edge rusher, Nick Bosa, that's top 5 in the league. Opposite him is Drake Jackson, who had roughly an average year as a rookie, and then he was hurt year 2, so he remains a question mark, as he was drafted in the second in 2022 as a highly promising player. Leonard Floyd is a good option for the other position, though, too. So they have a good rotation on the edge. Inside is Javon Hargrave, who is a top 5 pass rushing defensive tackle in the league, but struggles a bit as a run defender. Similarly, Malik Collins is a good pass rusher and poor run defender, but remains a valuable piece on the defense nonetheless. Moving back, but sticking with their front 7, is their linebacker core, which is just very good. You have Fred Warner, who many think is the best linebacker in football, myself included. And then there's Devondre Campbell, who's a balanced linebacker that can defend the run and cover at solid levels also. Moving to the defensive backs now, this is where they're very underrated, as the focus is usually on their front 7, which is great, but so too is their secondary. Charvarius Ward is a top 5 cornerback in the league, and on the other side they have either Ambry Thomas or Renardo Green, who they drafted in the 2nd this year. They both have the prototypical size of an outside corner at 6 foot tall, and the Thomas has had flashes of being a good cornerback, though he hasn't done so consistently. At nickel, Diamador Lenore had a great year in the slot, as he's physical against the run and pass at 200 pounds, which is big for the position. So he has some nice skill sets to him as well. At safety, things remain strong, as Jair Brown had a great rookie year, and Talanoa Hufanga has been good for years now also. Lastly, I saved their offensive line for the end for a reason, as it's both a strength and a weakness. Trent Williams might just be the best tackle in all of football, as he has no issues in pass protection or run blocking. Everyone else is more of a run blocker than they are pass protector, though, as they rank 26th in pass blocking and 1st in run blocking, according to PFF ranks. They definitely get out on the move very well in the run game, but they can struggle if they're asked to protect for long times in a non-moving pocket, which doesn't happen very much as the wide receivers get open so quickly, and Kyle Shanahan schemes things up appropriately. In all, the Niners have a weakness in conventional pass protection, and that's it. They aren't particularly strong at cornerback 2 or defensive tackle 2, but those aren't glaring weaknesses. Those are my thoughts on the top 5 rosters in the NFL. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section, and also be sure to subscribe for more NFL content.